The champagne glasses clinked as my mother-in-law, Patricia, celebrated what she thought was her greatest victory, to my son's new beginning. She announced so our entire family gathered at Le Maison, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. I stood quietly by their table, dressed in my waitress uniform, watching the scene unfold. "Sarah, dear," Patricia turned to me with that familiar smirk. "I suppose we should thank you for serving us tonight. It's fitting, really. This is where you belong, serving your betters." My hands didn't shake as I poured more champagne into her glass. 5 years of marriage to her son James had taught me to expect the worst from Patricia Sterling. But even I hadn't anticipated this level of cruelty. "Mother," James protested weakly, not meeting my eyes. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "Nonsense." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Everyone needs to know. James is finally marrying someone worthy of the Sterling name, Sophia Chen, the daughter of that famous chef everyone's talking about. No more pretending that a mere waitress could ever fit into our world." I carefully set down the champagne bottle, knowing how my sister-in-law, Emma, couldn't quite hide her gleeful smile. The entire Sterling family sat around that table, watching my public humiliation with varying degrees of satisfaction and discomfort. "Would you like to see the dessert menu?" I asked professionally, my voice steady. Patricia laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. "Oh, you're still trying to maintain dignity? How quaint. Tell me, how does it feel knowing my son is upgrading to someone who actually understands fine dining instead of just serving it?" I could have ended their celebration right then. One word from me and the maitre d' would have thrown them out. After all, I didn't just work at La Maison. I owned it, along with 12 other high-end restaurants across the country. But patience had always been my strongest virtue. "I hope you enjoy your evening," I replied simply, turning to walk away. "Wait," James called out, finally finding his voice. "Sarah, we should talk about this. I didn't want you to find out this way." I paused, looking at my husband of 5 years, the man who promised to stand by me through everything, who'd sworn his mother's disapproval wouldn't matter. The man who'd apparently been seeing Sophia Chen behind my back for months. "There's nothing to talk about," I said quietly. "Your mother's right about one thing. This is exactly where I belong." Let them think I meant as a waitress. Let them believe their assumptions about my position in life. I'd learned long ago that people see what they expect to see. Walking back to the kitchen, I passed Marcel, my head chef. He raised an eyebrow questioningly, having witnessed the entire scene. "Madame, shall I?" "Not yet," I murmured. "Let them finish their meal." I'd inherited my first restaurant at 25 when my grandmother passed away. She'd built Le Maison from nothing, teaching me everything she knew about the restaurant business while allowing me to work my way up from dishwasher to waitress to manager. "Never let them see everything you are," she'd always said. "Keep something in reserve." When I married James at 28, I'd already expanded to 3 locations. Now, at 33, my restaurant empire was worth millions, but I kept that quiet, allowing Patricia to believe I was just a waitress who'd somehow trapped her precious son. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "Can we please talk about this? I know it's a shock, but Sophia understands our world in a way you never could." I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing file of evidence. Another buzz. "Mother says you can keep the apartment we've been living in. She's being generous, considering everything." The apartment they thought was a rental, but was actually one of my properties. The same building where Sophia Chen currently lived in a penthouse apartment, paying rent to my management company. I called my lawyer, the one I consulted 3 months ago when I first noticed James's suspicious behavior. "Deanna, it's time. Remember those papers we discussed? The ones documenting his affairs and financial misconduct. Already prepared. When do you want me to file?" "Monday morning. And Deanna, make sure the Sterling family's accounts are flagged at all my restaurants. Effective immediately." I ended the call and opened my laptop, reviewing the security footage from Sophia's penthouse lobby. There it was, James entering at various hours over the past months, always when he claimed to be working late. Each visit documented, time-stamped, and saved. Patricia's voice carried across the restaurant. "Finally, our James will have a wife who appreciates fine cuisine, who understands wine pairings and proper table settings. No more embarrassing moments at charity galas." I smiled, remembering all those galas where I played the role of the unsophisticated waitress-turned-wife. watching Patricia criticize my every move while I signed checks funding those very events through my charitable foundation. My phone buzzed again, this time from my sister-in-law. You didn't really think you'd keep him, did you? A waitress in the Sterling family. Mother's been working on this match with the Chens for months. Perfect. More evidence of premeditation. I typed a quick message to my restaurant manager. Flag any reservations under Chen or Sterling at all locations. Full documentation of visits, charges, and security footage. The response came immediately. Already done, boss. Want us to cancel their current reservation? No, I replied. Let them enjoy their celebration. It's going to be their last meal at any of our establishments. Through the kitchen doors, I could hear Patricia regaling the table with stories of Sophia's accomplishments, her culinary degree, her father's famous restaurants in Hong Kong, her understanding of fine wines. What Patricia didn't know was that Sophia's father had approached me 6 months ago about selling his struggling restaurant group. The papers would be signed next week, adding his 4 locations to my portfolio. I wondered how he'd react when he learned his future son-in-law's soon-to-be ex-wife was his new boss. My phone buzzed with an alert from my banking app. James had just tried to use our joint credit card to pay for the evening celebration, a card I'd quietly canceled an hour ago. I watched through the kitchen window as he frowned at his phone, then pulled out another card, and another. Each declined, thanks to my careful financial planning. Is there a problem with the payment? I asked, approaching their table one last time. Patricia's face reddened. James, what's going on? I don't understand, he muttered, pulling out his phone to check his banking app. All my cards are declining. How embarrassing, I said softly. Would you like me to ask the manager to come over? Yes. Patricia snapped. This is ridiculous. We're the Sterling family. We don't have payment problems. I nodded and walked away, but instead of fetching the manager, I returned to my office. Through the security feed, I watched as Marcel, my head chef, approached their table. Madam Sterling, he said formally, I regret to inform you that your family's accounts have been flagged in our system. We cannot accept payment from you at this time. This is outrageous. Patricia stood up, her voice rising. Do you know who we are? Call the owner immediately. The owner is already aware of the situation. Marcel replied calmly. In fact, she's the one who flagged your accounts. The owner? James looked confused. What does the owner have to do with our cards declining? I picked up my phone and typed a quick message to the family group chat James had created to announce his news. Since you're having trouble with the bill, I'll take care of it. Consider it my wedding gift to James and Sophia. After all, that's what family does, right? I watched through the camera as phones buzzed around the table. Patricia grabbed hers first, her face contorting as she read my message. What is she talking about? She demanded. She's just a waitress. I pressed send on another message. Oh, and Patricia, you might want to check who owns the building where Sophia lives. The same person who owns this restaurant, and 12 others across the country. The silence at their table was absolute as the implications sank in. That's impossible, James whispered, but I could see the dawning horror on his face as he finally put the pieces together. My comfortable lifestyle despite my waitress salary, my extensive knowledge of fine dining that I carefully hid in, my quiet confidence in the face of his mother's constant criticism. My phone buzzed one last time that evening, from James. We need to talk. Now. I walked out of my office and through the kitchen, straightening my waitress uniform. It was time to greet my guests properly. Sarah. James stood up as I approached their table, his face pale. You own the maison. Among other things, I replied calmly, removing my waitress apron. Marcel, please ensure the Sterling family's meal is added to my personal account. Patricia's face had turned an interesting shade of red. This is some kind of trick. You're just a waitress. We've watched you serve tables for years. Actually, Mother, I said, emphasizing the title she'd never let me use before, you watched me manage my business. There's a difference. Emma, my sister-in-law, was frantically Googling on her phone. Her eyes widened. La Maison Group, 13 high-end restaurants. Founder Sarah Chin Montgomery. She looked up at me in shock. Montgomery, your grandmother's name. The same grandmother you mocked for being just a cook at our wedding, I reminded her. She built this restaurant empire from nothing. I've spent the last 5 years expanding it. James sank back into his chair. All those times you stayed late at work. I was running my business, yes, just like all those times you claimed to be working late, but were actually visiting Sophia in the penthouse apartment she rents from my property management company. Patricia stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. You've been spying on my son. No, I've been monitoring my property. The security cameras in my buildings are there for everyone's safety. I smiled pleasantly. They've captured some very interesting footage over the past few months. You had no right, James began, but I cut him off. I had every right to protect my interests, especially after you started embezzling from our joint accounts to fund your affair. The color drained from his face. I didn't. The transfers to a secret account under your mother's name? The cash withdrawals that coincidentally matched the deposits into Sophia's account. My forensic accountant has documented everything. Marcel appeared at my side with a tablet. The papers you requested, madame. I took the tablet and turned it toward the table. These are screenshots of your text messages planning this little announcement tonight. Notice the timestamp on Patricia's message. Everything's arranged. The Chin girl is ready to play her part. Sarah will be working the dinner shift as usual. Patricia's hands shook as she reached for her wine glass. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can prove everything, including the fact that you've known about James' affair for months and helped orchestrate this public humiliation. I swiped to the next screen. These are records of your meetings with Sophia's father, planning what you thought would be an advantageous business merger through marriage. James leaned forward. Sarah, please, we can talk about this privately. Like you talked privately with Sophia in her apartment, or like you talked privately with your mother about how to minimize the divorce settlement you thought you'd have to pay your waitress wife. Emma was still scrolling through her phone. The La Maison Group's estimated worth. Oh my God. Yes, I nodded. Quite a bit more than the Sterling family fortune. Speaking of which, I turned to Patricia. You might want to reconsider that charity gala you're hosting next month. Your usual venue has suddenly become unavailable. You can't do that. Patricia sputtered. The invitations have already gone out. I own the venue. I can do whatever I want. I pulled up another document on the tablet. Just like I can do this. James peered at the screen, his face growing even paler. What is that? Divorce papers. My lawyer will file them first thing Monday morning. They include complete documentation of your affair, your financial misconduct, and your mother's involvement in both. You'll never prove. Patricia began, but I held up my hand. Every restaurant where you met Sophia, every hotel room charged to our joint account, every transfer of money, every text message, every security camera footage. I have it all. The silence around the table was deafening. You know, I continued conversationally. I always wondered why you hated me so much, Patricia. Was it really because you thought I was just a waitress? Or was it because deep down, you knew I was more successful than your entire family? This is blackmail, she hissed. No, this is business. Something you clearly don't understand as well as you think you do. I turned to James. By the way, Sophia's father is selling his restaurant group. Care to guess who's buying it? James's jaw dropped. You're the buyer? The papers will be signed next week. I imagine that might make future family dinners a bit awkward. I smiled at Patricia, assuming of course that Sophia still wants to marry into the Sterling family once she learns her father's new boss is James' ex-wife. Patricia grabbed her purse. We're leaving. James, come on. Oh, please stay, I said. Your credit cards may be declining, but as I said, this meal is on me. Consider it a parting gift. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it and couldn't help but laugh. Oh, and Patricia, you might want to check your own account balance. It seems your financial advisor just received some very interesting documentation about your involvement in James's embezzlement. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and media speculation. The society pages couldn't get enough of the story. Successful restaurant owner takes down cheating husband's family empire. Sophia, to her credit, broke off the engagement as soon as she learned the truth. Her father was surprisingly understanding when I met with him to finalize the sale of his restaurants. I should have known, he said, shaking his head. The way you analyzed the financials, the questions you asked. No waitress would have that knowledge. Patricia and James tried to fight the divorce settlement, but the evidence was overwhelming. Their attempts to claim part ownership of my business were dismissed immediately. The judge was particularly unimpressed by their attempts to paint me as a manipulative spy who had somehow trapped James into marriage. "Let me get this straight," the judge had said, reviewing the documents. "You're claiming Mrs. Montgomery deceived you by successfully running her own business while allowing you to underestimate her." The Sterling family's social standing took a massive hit. Patricia's charity gala had to be canceled when every high-end venue in the city suddenly became unavailable for that date. James found his business contacts mysteriously reluctant to meet with him, especially at any restaurants. Emma tried to apologize, claiming she'd never known about James' affair. I sent her screenshots of her own text messages encouraging him to pursue Sophia. She didn't contact me again. 1 year after that fateful dinner, I sat in my office at La Maison, reviewing plans for my newest restaurant. The door opened and Marcel entered with a familiar face. "Ms. Chen," I greeted Sophia. "What can I do for you?" She shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to apologize. I never knew about your connection to the restaurant group. When James and his mother approached me, you saw an opportunity, I finished for her. I understand. Business is business. That's actually why I'm here, she said, pulling out a folder. I have a business proposition, a new restaurant concept. I'd like you to consider it. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Even after everything? Especially after everything. You turned a single restaurant into an empire while letting everyone underestimate you. That's the kind of mentor I need. I thought about my grandmother, about all the lessons she taught me about business and life. Sometimes, I said, opening the folder, the best revenge is success. And sometimes, the best success comes from unexpected places. Does that mean you'll look at my proposal? I'll do better than that, I said. I'll teach you what my grandmother taught me. Never let them see everything you are. Keep something in reserve. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. James is getting married again. I expect you to release the venue restrictions. I shoved the message to Sophia, who laughed. Still trying to control everything. Some people never learn, I replied, then typed, Congratulations. I wish James and his new bride all the success they deserve. By the way, I just bought the company he works for. Expect restructuring announcements soon. I turned back to Sophia's proposal. Now tell me about this restaurant concept of yours. The society pages love that story too. Ruthless restaurant mogul mentor's former rival proves success is the best revenge. But they missed the real story. It wasn't about revenge at all. It was about power, not the power Patricia had craved, built on name and status, but real power built on hard work and careful planning. My grandmother would have been proud. 5 years later, I hosted a grand opening for my 20th restaurant. Patricia and James weren't invited, of course. But I made sure they received photos of the event. Of me cutting the ribbon, of Sophia, now my top restaurant developer, presenting our expansion plans, of their former social circle celebrating our success. James sent one last text. I should have known. All those years, you were so much more than you seemed. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My success spoke louder than any words could. The framed waitress apron in my office tells the story better than I ever could. Below it, a simple plaque reads, Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better. And beside it, my grandmother's favorite saying, Let them underestimate you, just make sure they're wrong.
The adults need to discuss business, my father said with his trademark condescension, gesturing toward the kitchen where the children's table was set up. Go sit with the kids, Alexandra. This conversation is beyond your experience level. I glanced at my watch, a subtle Patek Philippe worth more than their house, and checked the time. 6:45 p.m. Perfect. The press release was scheduled for 7 o'clock. Of course, Dad, I said mildly, gathering my plate. Around the main dining table, my siblings and their spouses barely concealed their smirks. After all, at 28, I was the family failure. The one who couldn't handle working at Harrison Industries, our family's struggling manufacturing company. If they only knew I was the anonymous buyer who'd been acquiring their company's stock for the past year. Try not to interrupt the grown-ups, my sister Jennifer called after me, adjusting her designer scarf, a knockoff she thought was genuine. Tom's about to explain his plan to save the company. Tom, Jennifer's husband and the current CFO of Harrison Industries, puffed up importantly. Yes, I've been working on a brilliant restructuring strategy. I settled at the children's table surrounded by my nieces and nephews. My cheap phone, actually a custom secure device worth more than their cars, was already buzzing with preliminary market reactions to the upcoming announcement. "Aunt Alex," my 8-year-old niece Sarah whispered, "why do they make you sit here? You're a grown-up." "Because they think I'm not successful," I whispered back, helping her cut her turkey. "They don't know what I really do." "What do you really do?" I smiled, hearing Tom's voice drift over from the main table, still explaining his doomed restructuring plan. "I buy companies, sweetheart. Big ones. Like Daddy's company?" "Exactly like Daddy's company." My phone buzzed again, a message from my CEO. "Everything's ready. Press release goes live in 10 minutes. Markets are going to go crazy." I could hear snippets of Tom's brilliant plan: sell off the profitable divisions, take on more debt, maybe lay off some workers. If he only knew those profitable divisions were already mine, purchased through shell companies over the past year. The debt he was planning to take on? My banks would be declining those loans. The workers he wanted to lay off? I had better jobs waiting for them in my other companies. "The real problem," my brother Michael was saying, "is that we need a miracle. The company's worth nothing now." I checked my watch again. 6:55 p.m. In 5 minutes, they'd learn exactly what Harrison Industries was worth. To me anyway. "What about that rumor of a buyer?" my mother asked. "Tom, didn't you say someone was acquiring shares?" "Some anonymous investor," Tom dismissed. "Probably just a market speculator. Nobody serious would want this company." I suppressed a smile, remembering the look on my investment team's faces when I'd first proposed the acquisition. "But it's a failing company," they'd said. "Why would you want it?" "Because some things were worth more than money." "Aunt Alex," Sarah tugged at my sleeve, "why is your phone buzzing so much?" "Because something big is about to happen," I whispered, watching the seconds tick down. "Want to watch?" She nodded eagerly and I pulled her onto my lap, holding my phone where she could see it. 6:59 p.m. 10, I whispered. 9, 8. "What are you counting down to?" 7, 6, 5. "A very special announcement. For E3, 2. Every phone at the adult table suddenly buzzed simultaneously. The synchronized chime of breaking news alerts cut through their business discussion like a knife. 1. I watched over Sarah's shoulder as they reached for their phones, confusion turning to shock as they read the headlines. Breaking. Morgan Global acquires Harrison Industries in $2 billion deal. Mysterious billionaire Alexander Morgan reveals identity in stunning takeover. Wall Street stunned as youngest Fortune 500 CEO claims family business. The sound of shattering glass pierced the silence. Tom had dropped his wine, sending red liquid spreading across my mother's prized tablecloth. "That's your name, Aunt Alex," Sarah exclaimed excitedly. "Are you the billionaire?" "Alexandra." My father's voice cracked. What is this?" I stood up slowly, straightening my simple black dress, a custom Chanel piece that cost more than their combined salaries. "This," I said calmly, "is business. And I believe we need to have a serious discussion about the future of Harrison Industries." I paused, letting it sink in. "Pie company." The silence in the dining room was absolute, broken only by the gentle clink of Sarah's fork as she continued eating her turkey, oblivious to the earthquake that had just shaken her family's world. My other nieces and nephews looked between me and their shell-shocked parents, sensing something momentous had occurred. This is impossible," Tom finally sputtered, his face turning an interesting shade of purple. "Harrison Industries is worth barely $200 million. Was worth $200 million, I corrected, walking slowly toward the main table. "Under your management, anyway. Morgan Global's valuation puts it at $2 billion after restructuring. Though that's just the beginning." Jennifer's hands were shaking so badly she had to put down her phone. "Morgan Global, but that's the largest private equity firm in the world?" I supplied. "Yes, it is. Though that's just our public face. The private holdings are considerably more substantial." My father had gone completely pale, his eyes fixed on his phone screen where the headlines kept rolling in. Alexander Morgan, the silent billionaire behind Morgan Global. Wall Street's greatest mystery solved. Morgan Global CEO reveals identity. Harrison Industries stock soars 500% on acquisition news. But you're just. He couldn't even finish the sentence. Just what, Dad? The daughter who couldn't handle working at Harrison Industries. I smiled slightly. The one you forced out because I suggested modernizing the production lines. Those modernization plans would have bankrupted us. Tom found his voice again. The cost alone would have been less than what I spend on office supplies in a month. I cut him off. Morgan Global's quarterly coffee budget is larger than Harrison Industries' annual revenue. My phone buzzed again, messages from various world leaders and business titans congratulating me on the acquisition. The president wanted a meeting. The British Prime Minister was inquiring about UK expansion possibilities. Speaking of finances, I continued, pulling up a document on my phone. Let's discuss your creative accounting, Tom. The SEC is particularly interested in those offshore accounts you've been using. The color drained from his face. What offshore accounts? The ones where you've been hiding company assets. Did you really think Morgan Global's forensic accounting team wouldn't find them during due diligence? Jennifer turned to her husband, horror dawning on her face. Tom, what is she talking about? Oh, he didn't tell you? I raised an eyebrow. About how he's been embezzling from the pension fund. About the shell companies he set up in the Cayman Islands. My mother's hand flew to her pearl necklace, the one she'd bragged about Dad buying her last Christmas. But Tom's been handling all our personal investments. Yes, he has, I confirmed. And as of... I checked my watch, 12 minutes ago, those accounts have been frozen pending federal investigation. The children's table had gone quiet. The kids watching the adult drama unfold with wide eyes. Sarah tugged at my sleeve again. Aunt Alex, does this mean you're everyone's boss now? Yes, sweetheart, it does. I smiled down at her. In fact, why don't you all go play in the family room? The grown-ups need to have a serious discussion. As the children filed out, I turned back to my stunned family. Now then, let's talk about what happens next. What do you mean, what happens next? Michael demanded. You can't just walk in here and take over our company. Actually, I can. And I did. I pulled out my phone again, bringing up another document. I own 87% of Harrison Industries shares. The board approved the acquisition unanimously this morning. It's done. The board, my father's voice cracked. But I'm the chairman. Not anymore, I corrected. As of 7 p.m. you're retired. Along with the entire current management team. Tom started to stand up, but my words froze him in place. The entire management team? Did you think I'd keep a CFO who's been embezzling from the company? I asked mildly. The FBI will be here shortly, by the way. They're very interested in those offshore accounts. Jennifer burst into tears. You're having my husband arrested? At Thanksgiving dinner? No, I said calmly. I'm having a criminal arrested who happens to be your husband. The timing is unfortunate but necessary. Through the dining room windows, we could see black SUVs pulling up to the house, standard procedure when I traveled anywhere. My security team was already taking up positions around the property. But what will happen to us? My mother whispered. Our savings, our investments, are all tied up in Tom's fraud, I finished. The SEC has frozen everything pending investigation, though I'm willing to be lenient under certain conditions. I reached into my bag, a custom Hermes piece worth more than their combined net worth, and pulled out 5 envelopes. Inside each envelope, I continued, you'll find 2 options. Choose carefully. Your futures depend on it. Options. Michael's voice cracked. Option 1. Cooperate fully with the federal investigation, return all fraudulent gains and accept positions in one of my smaller companies, starting at entry level, of course. Entry level? Jennifer screeched. I'm a vice president. You're unemployed, I corrected. Your position was obtained through nepotism and funded by fraud. That ends today. And option 2? My father asked quietly. Face the consequences of your actions without my intervention. The SEC is particularly interested in how family members helped conceal Tom's fraud. Those investment seminars you hosted, Dad? The client referrals? All illegal. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, I could see FBI vehicles joining my security detail. My phone buzzed again, a message from my CO. Asian markets opening in an hour. Ready to change the world. I looked at my family, their perfect Thanksgiving dinner ruined by the weight of their own crimes. Yes, I typed back. It's time for some changes. The aroma of turkey and cranberry sauce still lingered in the air, a stark contrast to the tension that now gripped the dining room. Through the window, red and blue lights began flashing as FBI vehicles joined my security detail. The perfect Thanksgiving tableau was about to shatter completely. Before the FBI comes in, I said, settling into what had always been my father's chair at the head of the table, let me explain exactly what Morgan Global's forensic team uncovered. I pulled out my tablet, a custom secure device that made their latest iPads look like children's toys, and began displaying documents on the dining room's built-in smart screen. Another acquisition they didn't know about. I'd bought the company that made the screen last month. First, there's the matter of the pension fund. I began pulling up detailed financial records. Tom has been systematically draining it for the past 3 years. Over $50 million missing, funneled through a complex network of shell companies. Jennifer's mascara was creating dark rivers down her cheeks. Tom, tell me this isn't true. It gets worse, I continued, swiping to the next document. Dad, remember those special investment opportunities you helped Tom promote to your golf club friends? My father's hands began to shake. Those were legitimate investments. They were Ponzi schemes, I said. You convinced 38 of your closest friends to invest their life savings into fake funds. The FBI is very interested in your role, especially since you weren't even a licensed advisor. But Tom handled the paperwork, he said weakly. He did. Using one of my banks, actually. Did you really think Morgan Global wouldn't notice shady transactions running through our own systems? Michael, who had been quiet all night, finally spoke. Wait, your banks? How many companies do you own? I gave a small smile. Morgan Global owns controlling shares in over 500 companies. Banks, tech firms, factories, real estate, you name it. Last quarter, our value passed $200 billion. $200 billion. My mother whispered, clutching her pearls. The same ones from a jewelry company I bought last year. And that's just the part people know about, I added. The private assets are even bigger. My phone buzzed again. The president wanted a briefing. The Chinese premier had questions. I ignored them, for now family came first. Now, I said, let's talk about Mom's charity. The one Tom used to launder money through fake donations. My mother turned pale. But we help children. You helped yourselves, I said. Over $30 million in fake donations. That money ended up in offshore accounts. Jennifer started crying. All our money, everything, was built on lies, I said. Your houses, cars, trips, and country club memberships, paid for with stolen money. I looked toward the hallway where Sarah and the other kids stood watching, confused. They were the real victims, trapped in a future shaped by their parents' greed. Still, I said gently, for their sake I'm willing to show mercy. Mercy? Tom snapped. You're having me arrested. I'm arresting a criminal, I said firmly. You being family doesn't change that. But it does give you one chance. I pointed to the unopened envelopes on the table. Each envelope explains 2 options. Option 1. Cooperate with the investigation, return the stolen money, and start fresh in one of my companies. Entry-level jobs. Earn your way up. No special treatment. What about our money? My father asked quietly. It's frozen for now. You'll get a living allowance based on how much you help. The fancy houses, cars, and luxury stuff? All seized. Seized. Jennifer shouted. Where are we supposed to live? Morgan Global has housing for employees in transition. Simple but clean and safe. Your kids' education will be covered too. And option 2? Michael asked as he finally picked up his envelope. Simple, I said. Refuse and the FBI and SEC get everything. You face the full consequences on your own. Just then, footsteps echoed in the hallway. FBI agents were arriving, led by my head of security. Ms. Morgan, he said, the agents are ready. Thank you, James. I stood adjusting my Chanel dress. You have until they walk in to decide. Choose wisely. Wait, my mother cried. All these years, why didn't you tell us who you really were? I looked around the ruined Thanksgiving table. I tried, I said. Last year I offered to help modernize the company. You laughed. Said I didn't understand business. Jennifer waved her hands. But your office, your clothes, your car. All part of staying hidden while I built something real, I said. You showed off stolen wealth. I built a company that creates jobs and helps people. Morgan Global now has over 400,000 employees. We build things that matter. FBI agents walked in. The room went still. One last thing, I said. I took out a paper and placed it on the table. A list of every Harrison Industries employee. Their jobs and pensions are safe. Why? My father whispered. After how we treated you? Because that's the difference, I said. Real success isn't about revenge or showing off. It's about building something honest and lasting. An agent stepped forward. Miss Morgan, we're ready. I nodded. You have seconds. Choose. Tom's handcuffs clicked. The others rushed to open their envelopes. My phone buzzed. Another message from my CEO. Asian markets are going wild. Ready to rebuild the right way. I looked at Sarah and the other kids watching from the hallway. Their future would be different. It would be real. Yes, I replied. It's time to show them what honest success looks like. Because true power isn't destroying people. It's building something better. And this was just the beginning. The private dining room at Lou Bernardine hummed with the familiar sound of my family's disappointment in me. Crystal stemware caught the soft lighting, making the expensive wine in their glasses sparkle as they discussed my latest failure. I sat quietly, cutting my perfectly cooked salmon while my sister Amanda held court, her new engagement ring flashing with every dramatic gesture. So there I was, she was saying, closing the Anderson merger, $100 million deal mind you, when Sarah calls asking for business advice. She used air quotes, making our mother chuckle. As if her little startup could handle real corporate strategy. Dad, executive VP at Maxwell Industries, nodded sagely. At least she's asking for help now. Better late than never. I didn't actually dash, I started, but Mom cut me off. Darling, we're just concerned. You left a perfectly good job at Dad's company to be your own boss. More air quotes. And what do you have to show for it? A tiny office in that dreadful WeWork space. If they only knew that tiny office was actually the entire top floor of the WeWork building, which I own through one of my holding companies. I manage, I said quietly, taking another bite of salmon. Manages to lose money, Amanda Stage whispered to Dad, who tried to hide his smirk behind his wine glass. Speaking of managing, Mom brightened. Amanda, tell Sarah about your promotion. Amanda preened, adjusting her Cartier watch, a gift from Dad for following the right path in business. Well, since you asked, I'm being made junior partner at Maxwell next month. Youngest ever. That's wonderful, I murmured, checking my phone under the table. A message from my CFO. Final paperwork signed. Maxwell Industries merger announcement set for tomorrow. Should we move it up? See, Sarah. Dad leaned forward, entering lecture mode. That's what happens when you follow the traditional corporate path. Amanda started in the mailroom dash. Actually, Daddy, I started as your executive assistant, Amanda corrected. Right. Worked her way up properly. None of this disruption nonsense you're always talking about. I thought about the documents sitting in my office safe, papers that would disrupt their world beyond recognition in about 14 hours. Still playing entrepreneur? Amanda smirked. What's this company called again? Phoenix something. Phoenix Digital Solutions, I supplied, though they never remembered. Such a pretentious name, Mom sighed. Darling, there's no shame in admitting defeat. I'm sure your father could find you something entry-level at Maxwell. That's right, Dad nodded. The mailroom's always hiring. Though, he chuckled, you might have to report to your sister soon. Amanda's laugh tinkled like expensive ice. Can you imagine? Sarah taking orders from her little sister? Though it would be better than whatever she's doing now. I took another sip of wine, thinking about the real reason I'd suggested dinner tonight. In exactly 3 minutes, their perfectly ordered world would start to crumble. How many employees do you even have? Amanda pressed. 2, 3. Something like that, I said, not mentioning the 300 people in my main office or the 2,000 across our global operations. And what exactly does your company do? Mom asked, making those infuriating air quotes again. Before I could answer, the private dining room's door opened. Charles Maxwell himself, CEO of Maxwell Industries and my father's boss for 30 years, walked in. Dad nearly dropped his wine glass. "Charles. What a surprise." "Richard." Charles boomed. "Glad I caught you all. I was having dinner with some board members and heard you were here. Please join us," Mom gushed, already calculating the social capital of having the CEO at her table. Charles's eyes swept the table, landing on me with a knowing glint. "Actually, I came to see Sarah." Silence fell over the table like an expensive tablecloth. "Sarah." Amanda's voice had risen an octave. "Why would you dash? There's my new business partner," Charles declared, pulling up a chair. "I've been trying to reach you all evening about tomorrow's announcement." Mom's fork clattered to the floor. "Partner." Dad's face had gone an interesting shade of purple. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake, Richard." Charles smiled broadly. "Though I suppose partner isn't quite accurate anymore, given the merger terms." Amanda's perfectly glossed lips formed a small O of confusion. "Merger? Didn't Sarah tell you?" Charles looked around the table with artificial surprise. "Phoenix Digital Solutions is acquiring controlling interest in Maxwell Industries. The papers were signed this morning." The silence that followed was worth every moment of the past 5 years of their condescension. But that's impossible," Dad sputtered. "Phoenix is just a small startup." "Small." Charles laughed. "Sarah, you really haven't told them anything, have you?" I smiled, dabbing my lips with the napkin. "I tried. They were too busy planning Amanda's partner party." "That reminds me," Charles turned to Amanda, whose face had gone from confused to horrified. "About that junior partner position." The silence that had fallen over the table was broken only by the soft clink of my knife against fine china as I continued eating my salmon. 5 years of careful planning had led to this moment, and I intended to savor every second. "This is absurd," Dad finally managed, his face cycling through various shades of red. "Sarah's company it's nothing. Just a small consulting firm." Charles raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you think Phoenix Digital Solutions is?" "Richard, your daughter's small consulting firm revolutionized the entire tech industry. Where do you think Maxwell's recent digital transformation came from?" Mom's hand flew to her throat, clutching her pearls. But that was Amanda's project." "Actually," I spoke up, "Amanda was just the face of the project. My team did all the work, under a different company name, of course." Amanda's perfectly manicured hand gripped her wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. "That's not true. I led that transformation. I have the presentations, the reports dash." "The presentations my team prepared?" I interrupted softly. "The reports you put your name on without understanding a single line of code?" Charles nodded. "We knew about that, by the way. It was quite impressive watching Sarah's team quietly fix all your modifications." The color drained from Amanda's face as she remembered all the times she'd improved our proposals, improvements that had nearly tanked the entire project until my real team stepped in to salvage them. "But the board meetings," Dad protested weakly. "Amanda presented to the board. And I sat in the back," I reminded him, as Elena Stone, the technical consultant, you never bothered to acknowledge. "Remember how you made me wait in the hallway while Amanda took credit for my quarterly projections?" Mom's hands were shaking as she reached for her wine. "This doesn't make sense. Sarah's company, it's just her. In that awful shared office space." "Actually, Mrs. Bennett," Charles interjected, "Phoenix Digital occupies the entire building. Sarah owns it through one of her holding companies, along with most of the tech corridor downtown." The waiter chose that moment to arrive with dessert menus. One look at our table, Dad's purple face, Mom's trembling hands, Amanda's mascara starting to run, and he wisely retreated. "But the Anderson merger," Amanda whispered, her voice small. $100 million deal. "Was actually $1 billion deal," I corrected gently. "After my team restructured it. Did you ever wonder why those technical consultants kept revising your numbers?" Charles checked his watch. "Speaking of numbers, the press release goes live at midnight. Sarah, the Wall Street Journal wants an exclusive about the hidden powerhouse behind Maxwell's success." Dad's hand slammed down on the table, making the crystal water glasses jump. Tao, see here. I've been at Maxwell for 30 years. I built that digital division dash. You resisted it at every turn, Charles cut in, his voice suddenly hard. If Sarah hadn't secretly intervened, your stubborn adherence to traditional methods would have bankrupted us. Why do you think I approved this merger so quickly? Mom was frantically scrolling through her phone, probably reading about Phoenix Digital for the first time. $12 billion in assets. Global operations. Named most innovative company last year. This can't be right. Oh, it's right, I said, finally setting down my fork. All those cute little projects you mocked? Front companies for one of the largest tech conglomerates in the world. That waste of time you laughed about at Christmas? Just acquired our biggest competitor. Amanda's lower lip trembled. But my partner position will not be happening, I finished. Along with most of the executive positions created through nepotism rather than merit. You can't do this, Dad's voice was dangerous and low. I won't allow it. Charles actually laughed. Richard, as of tomorrow morning, Sarah will be your boss. In fact, he checked his phone, the paperwork just cleared. She already is. The sound of shattering glass made us all jump. Amanda's wine glass had slipped from her fingers, spreading an expensive red stain across the white tablecloth, rather like how news of this merger would spread across their carefully ordered world. I think, I said, standing up and smoothing my dress, the one Mom had called bargain basement earlier, it was Chanel. This is a good time to discuss tomorrow's organizational changes. First, I began, pulling out my tablet, let's address the immediate changes. Dad, your office will need to be cleared out by noon tomorrow. Security will assist. You're firing your own father? Mom's voice rose to a pitch that made nearby wine glasses vibrate. Not firing, I corrected. Retiring. With a very generous package. More generous than he deserves, given the audit results. Dad's face went from purple to white. What audit? Charles grimaced. The one that revealed how you've been channeling company resources into Amanda's projects, Richard. The irregular promotions, the inflated budgets, the credit for other people's work. Amanda burst into tears, her expensive mascara creating dark rivers down her cheeks. But I earned those promotions. Did you? I pulled up a file on my tablet. Let's review your biggest achievement, the Anderson merger. Would you like to explain these reports? The ones you presented as your own work. I modified them, she stammered. You put your name on them, I corrected. After my team spent 6 months building the strategy. A strategy you nearly derailed with your improvements. Mom's hand was shaking so badly she had to set down her wine glass. But all those Society magazine articles, Amanda's interviews about being a young business prodigy, were all based on my work, I finished. Work that Dad made sure was credited to his successful daughter. Charles cleared his throat. The board was quite interested to learn about that, by the way, along with some other creative accounting regarding family expenses. Dad's face went even whiter. He knew exactly which expenses Charles meant. The business meetings that were actually family vacations, the client entertainment that paid for Amanda's engagement party, the office upgrades that renovated Mom's kitchen. You can't prove any of this, he blustered, but his voice lacked conviction. I smiled, sliding another document across the table. Actually, we can prove all of it. Which is why you're going to quietly retire, take your generous package and stay very, very quiet about everything you've learned tonight. Amanda was still crying, mascara now completely ruined. What about me? My position is being eliminated, I said firmly. Along with several other questionably created executive roles. However, I slid another document her way. I'm offering you an entry-level position in our actual digital transformation team. You can learn the work you've been taking credit for. Entry-level? She shrieked. I'm a senior executive. No, Charles corrected. You were playing at being a senior executive. There's a difference. Mom had finally found her voice again. Sarah, you can't do this to your family. After everything we've done for you, Done for me. I cut her off. You mean like mocking every company I built? Excluding me from family events because I was embarrassingly unsuccessful? telling everyone I was having a breakdown when I refused Dad's entry-level job offer. The room was silent. I stood up and spoke calmly. The press release goes live in 4 hours. By tomorrow, every business news outlet will know that the failed daughter you always mocked is now your boss. And that little startup you laughed at? Phoenix Digital Solutions just bought Maxwell Industries in the biggest tech deal of the year. Dad looked shocked. The country club. They'll definitely hear about it, I said. Oh, and your membership is being cancelled. Company policy now. No more personal spending on business accounts. Charles, the board chair, stood up and fixed his tie. I'll head back to my dinner. Sarah, the board meets tomorrow at 9 a.m. See you then, CO. He walked out. Mom tried one last time. Sweetheart, let's talk this over. Just us as a family. I shook my head. We're not family anymore. We're co-workers. And in business, I smiled, thinking of all the times they laughed at me. What you do matters more than your last name. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned one last time. Oh, and Amanda, that corner office you were so proud of? I'm turning it into a coding boot camp for new hires. You'll be joining the class, if you accept the job. First session is Monday at 9. Don't be late. I shut the door behind me. Just before it closed, I heard Mom whisper, "What just happened?" I smiled to myself as I walked to my car. What happened was 5 years of hard work finally paying off. I didn't follow the path they wanted. I built my own. And it led me straight to the CEO's office. Tomorrow they'd wake up to headlines saying the failed daughter had taken over. Tomorrow they'd answer to me. But tonight I had a press release to finish, and a company to lead. Because in the end, merit matters more than blood. The next day, a Wall Street Journal article was on my desk with a photo that I knew would drive them crazy. Phoenix Rising. How Sarah Bennett transformed the tech world. The photo showed me in my father's old office, now mine, wearing the same Armani suit Mom once said looked cheap. Another headline read, Maxwell Industries stock soars 400% under new CEO, the failed daughter's comeback. My assistant Michael buzzed in. Your mom's here again. Third time this week. Let me guess. More investment ideas. She says her important friends want to meet with you. I laughed. These were the same people who ignored me at country club events for years. Tell her my calendar is full. As always. The past 6 months had been interesting. After the big announcement, my family went through every stage of denial. First, they pretended it wasn't real. Dad tried to block the merger. But his bad decisions and poor management made it easy for the board to support me. Then they got angry. Amanda threatened to sue, saying the digital changes were her idea. Our legal team showed proof she copied my reports, word for word. Next, they tried to make deals. Mom showed up daily with business tips from her wealthy friends. These were the same people who used to whisper that I'd never be as successful as Amanda. After that came embarrassment. Magazine covers told the truth. Maxwell Industries heir exposed as fraud. Bennett family nearly destroys tech giant with nepotism. It wasn't good press for Amanda, or for Dad's golf game. Now they're finally starting to accept it. Kind of. My phone buzzed again. Amanda was calling. Probably about her spot in the coding boot camp. To my surprise, she actually took the entry-level job. Her first day ended in tears. And a broken keyboard. Wasting money on investments again? Mom sneered across the dinner table, eyeing the financial documents spread beside my plate. What is it this time? More penny stocks. I carefully tucked the real estate acquisition papers back into my folder. Documents showing I'd just purchased the entire Riverside commercial complex through my holding company, River Crown Investments. The same complex where my family's law firm occupied the top 3 floors. Just some small investments, I replied, pushing my food around. Nothing major. Dad, senior partner at Mitchell & Associates, scoffed. At least your brother James knows how to handle money properly. Made partner at 35, owns his own penthouse. Actually, James was about to lose that penthouse. The building had been quietly acquired by one of my shell companies last week, and the rent was doubling next month. Speaking of property, Mom brightened. James just bought another unit in that luxury development downtown. Meanwhile, you're still renting that tiny apartment. I smiled, thinking of my tiny apartment, the entire top floor of River Tower, currently disguised as a modest rental. They had no idea I owned the building along with half the downtown real estate portfolio they so admired. The firm's expanding again, James announced, arriving late as usual in his designer suit. Taking over the whole 42nd floor. Dad pulled some strings with the building management. I bit back a laugh. The building management was me. Their expansion request had landed on my desk yesterday, marked urgent. That's wonderful, darling. Mom beamed. Such a smart investment, leasing in Riverside Complex. The most prestigious address in the city. About that, I started, but James cut me off. Did you hear they're selling the building? Some investment group bought it. Probably going to jack up the rents. If he only knew. River Crown Investments, my company, had plans for more than just rent increases. Maybe they'll finally fix the elevators, Dad grumbled. Been complaining to management for months. I'm sure the new owners will address that, I said carefully, knowing the modernization plans were already in motion. How would you know? James smirked. Still playing with your little investment apps? I thought of my real portfolio. 30 commercial properties, 15 residential developments, and a growing international presence. All carefully hidden behind holding companies and shell corporations. Just following the market, I shrugged. Speaking of following, Mom interjected, that junior associate position is still open at the firm. James could put in a word. I'm good with my current job. My current job being CEO of a billion-dollar real estate empire, but they didn't need to know that yet. What job? James laughed. Day trading from your laptop isn't a career. Dad nodded sagely. Real estate takes connections, princess. Years of networking, building relationships. You can't just walk in and buy a building? I suggested innocently. Exactly. He pointed his fork for emphasis. Leave the big investments to those who understand the business. I checked my phone under the table. The official notice to all Riverside Complex tenants would go out tomorrow morning. New ownership, new management, new terms. Well, I gathered my things. I should go. Have an early meeting tomorrow. With your investment advisor? James mocked. Going to buy another share of Apple? Something like that. I kissed Mom's cheek, already anticipating tomorrow's chaos. In my Bentley, carefully parked 3 blocks away, I changed into my CEO attire. Chanel suit, Louboutins, power jewelry. My phone buzzed with updates about tomorrow's announcement. Ms. Rivers, my assistant texted using my professional name, all notices are prepared. Security teams will be in place by 8 a.m. Perfect. The law firm's partners usually arrived at 9. Your brother tried to schedule another meeting about the expansion. Another message read. Still marked urgent. Even better. Let him sweat a little longer. Is everything ready for the renovation announcement? I replied. Yes. Including the part about relocating current tenants during construction. I smiled, imagining their reaction. 4 years, they dismissed my business acumen, treated me like a naive hobbyist playing with pocket change. Tomorrow they'd learn what real investment looked like. And I had front row seats to the show. Monday morning, 8:45 a.m. I stood in my private elevator in the Riverside Complex, watching the numbers climb. My Louboutins clicked against imported marble as I reviewed the morning schedule on my tablet. Status report? I asked my CEO Rachel Chin. Notices delivered to all tenants at 8 a.m. sharp. Your father's been on the phone with his contacts since 8:15, trying to reach the old management. Your brother arrived early for once. He's been pacing the executive floor. The elevator opened onto the 40th floor, where my new offices occupied the entire level. Through floor-to-ceiling windows I could see the law firm's reception area 2 floors up, already buzzing with agitated partners. Security teams? I confirmed, straightening my Chanel jacket. In position. IT has already begun the system upgrades. The renovation crews are standing by. Rachel checked her tablet. Oh, and your mother just arrived. Apparently she brings fresh flowers to your father's office every Monday. I smiled, remembering all those elaborate bouquets meant to showcase their success. Well, let's not keep them waiting. The first sign something was wrong hit the law firm at exactly 9 a.m. Their key card stopped working. Their phones went dead. Their computers displayed a single message. System upgrade in progress. Please stand by for new management orientation. I watched through security feeds as chaos erupted. Partners shouting into dead phones. Associates clutching coffee cups locked out of their offices. James, face reddening, demanding answers from a security guard who kept repeating, "Please wait for the new owner's representative." At 9:15, Dad finally arrived, Mom's flowers in hand. He found his entire firm locked out of their offices, clustering in the hallways like lost sheep. "What the hell is going on?" His voice boomed through the security feed. "Get me building management." "That would be me," I said, stepping out of the private elevator. The crowd fell silent. Mom's flowers slipped from Dad's hands, scattering across imported marble. "Alexandra." James stuttered. "What are you?" "Welcome to the new Riverside complex," I announced, Rachel distributing folders beside me. "I'm Alexandra Rivers, CEO of River Crown Investments. Your new landlord." Dad's face went from red to white. "Rivers? The investment group that bought the building?" "Actually," Rachel interjected, "Ms. Rivers owns the entire downtown portfolio. This building is just our latest acquisition." James snatched a folder, flipping through pages frantically. "This is impossible. You're just a what?" I asked softly. "A small investor? A hobbyist playing with apps." Mom found her voice first. But your apartment, your little investments, were a convenient cover." I activated the hallway screens, displaying River Crown's portfolio. "I own 30 commercial properties, 15 residential developments, and yes, the building where your precious penthouse sits, James." The crowd of lawyers muttered, recognizing address after address of prestigious properties they'd coveted. "Now," I continued, "about those renovation plans." "Renovation?" Dad's legal mind finally engaged. "We have a lease, which gives the owner full rights to perform necessary upgrades." I pulled up the blueprints. "Starting with those elevators you've been complaining about. Of course, that means relocating all tenants for, about 6 months. 6 months. James exploded. "We can't relocate. Our clients will be impressed by your new offices," I finished. "In River Tower. 20th floor. Much smaller, of course, but the rent's only triple what you're paying now." "Triple?" Mom whispered. But James said the firm's finances are a mess, I confirmed. "Yes, I've seen the books. Occupying premium space while bleeding money isn't great business strategy, is it?" Dad stepped forward, lawyer mode activating. "Now see here, young lady." "Ms. Rivers," Rachel corrected sharply. "Or would you prefer your landlord?" I held up a hand. "The renovation notice gives you 30 days to relocate. River Tower space is available immediately, at the new rate, of course. Your choice." "Choice?" James laughed desperately. "This is blackmail." "No," I smiled. "This is investment strategy. The kind you said I'd never understand." Security teams appeared at each end of the hallway. IT specialists rolled in carts of equipment, ready to begin the system overhaul. "You have 1 hour to collect personal items," I announced. "Everything else stays until the new lease terms are signed. Rachel will supervise." "Wait," Mom called as I turned to leave. "Your apartment, in River Tower. The penthouse." I raised an eyebrow. "That's my private residence. All 60 floors below it belong to River Crown Investments." 60 floors. James choked. "That's the most expensive real estate portfolio in the city?" "Yes, I know. I built it." I checked my watch. 59 minutes left. "I suggest you start packing." 1 month later, I sat in my River Tower penthouse office, reviewing the transformation of the Riverside complex. Through wall-to-wall windows, I could see construction crews swarming the building like ants, gutting the outdated interior for a complete modernization. "Ms. Rivers," Rachel entered with the morning reports. "The law firm's relocation is complete. They took the River Tower space. At triple the rent? Actually quadruple. Your brother tried negotiating, it didn't go well." I smiled, remembering James's attempts to leverage his family connection. "How are they settling in?" "Your father's new office is exactly 1/10 the size of his old one. James had to lay off 3 associates to cover the new rent. And your mother?" Still bringing flowers? Switch to supermarket bouquets. Rachel pulled up more data. The firm's finances are worse than we thought. They've been operating on reputation and borrowed money for years. I turned to my screens displaying the real-time renovation feeds. And the penthouse eviction? James moves out next week. His mortgage application for a new place was denied. Apparently, someone flagged his credit history. That someone being me, though he didn't need to know that. Your mother's been calling, Rachel added. Something about the country club membership. Which they can't afford anymore, I finished. Amazing how quickly status symbols fade when you have to actually pay for them. My phone buzzed. Dad probably making another attempt to negotiate the lease terms. I let it go to voicemail just like I had every day for the past month. The firm's client list is shrinking, Rachel continued. Turns out premium addresses and expensive artwork were hiding some serious competence issues. Speaking of artwork, I pulled up an inventory. What did they leave behind? Everything they couldn't prove they owned personally, including that Picasso print your father claimed was worth millions. The fake one. I laughed. Add it to the evidence file. Just then my private elevator chimed. Security feeds showed my entire family. Dad looking rumpled in a non-designer suit, James without his usual Italian leather briefcase, Mom clutching her drugstore flowers. Send them up, I decided. Time to finish this. They entered like chastened children, taking in my real office. All chrome and glass and power, with their old building visible through the windows behind me. Alexandra, Dad started then corrected himself. Ms. Rivers. We need to talk. About. I gestured to seats worth more than their monthly rent. The firm. We can't sustain these rates, James admitted. We've lost clients, had to cut staff. Sounds like poor business management, I observed. Something about real estate taking connections and understanding. Mom stepped forward, flowers trembling. Sweetheart, we know we underestimated you. Underestimated. I pulled up their financial records. You spent years mocking my investment strategies while running your firm into the ground. Living on borrowed money and inflated reputations. We built that reputation, Dad protested weakly. No, I corrected, you inherited it. Then squandered it on expensive offices and country club memberships you couldn't afford. James slumped in his chair. The other partners are talking about splitting up the firm. Good. I stood, power dynamics clear in our reflection. Maybe they'll learn what real business looks like. Is that what this is about? Mom's voice cracked. Teaching us a lesson? This is about business, I replied calmly. Your lease was undervalued. Your offices needed updating. The market demanded change. The market? Dad scoffed. You mean your revenge? Check the comparable rates, I suggested. You're getting exactly what the space is worth. The fact that you can't afford it? That's your problem. We're family, Mom tried again. Family. I pulled up old emails. Like when you told the bank not to fund my first property purchase. Or when James spread rumors about my failed investments to discourage potential partners. They had the grace to look ashamed. Here's what I'm offering, I continued, distributing new folders. Reduced rates on a smaller office space. 10th floor, back of the building. No view, no prestige address, but manageable rent. 10th floor. James looked horrified. Our clients will judge you on your work, not your zip code. I sat back. That's what real business is about. Dad opened his folder slowly. And the renovation charges? Consider them forgiven. Call it a family discount. I paused. The only one you'll ever get. Why? Mom asked quietly. Why help us at all? Because unlike you, I understand the difference between business and cruelty. I stood, ending the meeting. You have until Friday to decide. 10th floor or find new space elsewhere. After they left, Rachel returned with updates. James's penthouse is already rented, to one of their former clients, ironically. The country club approved their membership termination. And your mother, let me guess, canceled her standing flower order? Actually, she enrolled in a financial literacy course. I smiled slightly. Progress. Evening found me on my private terrace, watching lights flicker on across my real estate empire. My phone showed a text from James. We'll take the 10th floor. Smart choice, I replied. First time for everything. Another message from Mom. The financial course teacher says I should have listened to you years ago. Better late than never, I wrote back. Dad hadn't tried to contact me again. Probably still struggling with the new reality. One where his daughter wasn't just an investor but his landlord. Where premium addresses couldn't hide poor management. Where real success meant more than just appearances. Rachel joined me with the evening reports. The firm signed the new lease. 10 years fixed rate 10th floor. With the ethics clause prominently featured. Any hint of financial misconduct voids the lease immediately. I nodded, watching construction crews finish another day at Riverside Complex. The building would emerge stronger, modernized, better managed. Just like my family, perhaps. Ms. Rivers, Rachel hesitated. Your mother left something at reception. Said it was important. I opened the small package. Inside was a single supermarket rose and a note. Sorry we didn't see your true value sooner. Progress, one wilted flower at a time. The future? Yet to be written. But at least now they were reading the right prospectus. And I owned all the property it was printed on.